Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, August 9th, 2023, 2:39 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, today I want to speak to you about how we must learn to accept our circumstances, how we must learn to adapt to the situation we are currently experiencing, and how we must overcome any obstacle or endure any hardship that is currently in our lives. And before I begin to speak on what we are currently living through, I want you to remember the historical significance of many of the different ethnicities, many of the different uh, lines of descent that we come from in our past, to get you to understand the type of ancestry background that we come from. Because we must never forget that our ancestors have endured many hardships, and we are no different when it comes to enduring hardships. And some of the examples that I want to bring up are such as the African American slaves during the early 17th, 16th centuries, when African men and women and children were brought over from Africa to the Americas and sold into slavery, and they endured hardships, some of the likes in which we will have never known or seen. The Jews during the Holocaust endured hardships, again, some of the likeness that we will never see, and I hope that we never see. Japanese, the American Japanese that were in the internment camps during World War II endured hardships. The families with dead troops, such as Marines, sailors, or Coast Guard, or soldiers, or airmen, and also firefighters and police officers that endure hardships. Single mothers and single fathers endure hardships. Divorced men and divorced women endure hardships. Orphan children and foster children endure hardships. So there is a very historical significance when it comes to enduring hardships. And every single race has struggled. Every gender identity has struggled. Every sexual orientation has struggled. Straight people have struggled. Bisexual people have struggled. Pansexual people have struggled. Binary people have struggled. Cisgender people have struggled. Non binary people have struggled. Black people have struggled. Japanese people have struggled. Chinese people have struggled. Mexican people have struggled. White people have struggled. I do not know a single person that has not endured hardships. So, does that kind of give you a little bit of perspective when it comes to so many human beings on this planet? So many millions and billions of human beings have came and they've went, and not one single human being that has came and that has now left has not endured hardships. Every single one of us is impacted by hardship, by struggle, by obstacles, and not a single one of us is exempt. No one has also endured hardships. No one, you can best believe, has also endured hardships. And so, if you were to look at the historical significance of many humans that have came and went, you would know that not a single one of the human beings that have came and went is exempt from enduring hardships. And whether you believe in God or not, it does not matter. Christian people endure hardships. Muslim people endure hardships. Atheist people endure hardships. Agnostic people endure hardships. Life happens to every single one of us, including Confucius people have endured hardships. Philosophers and Stoics have endured hardships. Not a single one of us is exempt from enduring hardships. Sometimes we endure hardships alone. Sometimes we endure hardships with a significant other. Sometimes we endure hardships with our mother and our fathers in our families. Sometimes we endure hardships with a group of family, like cousins and aunts and nieces and nephews and uncles and grandfathers and grandmothers. And sometimes we endure hardships with classmates. Sometimes we endure hardships with coworkers. Sometimes we endure hardships with our animals. If you have a pet in your life, sometimes when you're alone, your pet is going through whatever it is that you're going through. And so there is a historical significance to enduring hardships. If you're religious in the Bible, it speaks of you being persecuted. It says that you will be persecuted and that you will suffer, but not to worry because he has suffered and conquered the world. And so, not a single one of us is exempt from enduring hardships. Not a single one of us is exempt from not enduring. Not a single one of us is exempt from not being tempted. We will be tempted in every way. We will be tempted in our sexual energy. We will be tempted in our diets. We will be tempted to spend money. We will be tempted to take out credit cards. We will be tempted. We will be tempted to take out loans. We will be tempted to spend and splurge on material possessions that we don't need. We will be tempted to fall in love. We will be tempted to be alone all our lives. We will be tempted to seek revenge. We will be tempted to drink alcohol. We will be tempted to do drugs. We will be tempted to smoke weed. We will be tempted to smoke cigarettes. We will be tempted in every single way imaginable. And you kind of now begin to understand that there isn't a race that has not endured hardships. Think about it. There isn't a single race on this planet that has not endured hardships. There isn't a single human being that has not been through something significant, something life changing, something life threatening. There isn't a single human being that is exempt from not enduring hardships. And it kind of makes you wonder how we have lived our lives as if we are so different. We're really not that different. We're really not that different. And so, how can we learn to accept our circumstances? How can we learn to accept what has happened to us? How can we learn to accept the struggles that we are currently facing? How can we learn to accept the obstacles that we are currently enduring? How can we learn to accept the hardships that have happened in our lives? Um, I know many people that have told me their story. Not all of it, but I've met many people that have told me their story. And sometimes when you hear a person's story, you think to yourself, wow, how did you manage to get out of that? You told me this horrible story, and so many horrible things have happened to you. How did you manage to get out of that? And many times people will say, I don't know. I just kept going on. I don't know. I don't know. Something inside of me did not want to quit. And there's almost this mystical spiritual element to the to the to the drive, the motivation that keeps us going, the willpower that we have to keep on going, the survival instinct that we have to keep on going. And it's almost this mystical experience that happens to us, unbeknownst to us, that there is something unknown happening to us when we have the necessity, or excuse me, for lack of a better word, when we have the motivation or the willpower to continue to battle on, continue to fight the good fight of faith. And it really makes you realize that human beings are not only amazing because of how human beings are able to suffer and still be able to show up to work, or to be able to put on a smile, or to be able to give, or to help others, but it shows also that human beings are not exempt from battling the elements, just like the birds that keep their nests inside of the trees. What would happen if a powerful storm comes and wipes off the nest from the top of the tree from the wind? Then that bird will have to that bird will either have to get her babies that fell from the nest and bring them back to the nest, or build a new one, or migrate somewhere else where there isn't going to be a windstorm. Or it's just like the animals that live in the forest, and when a fire breaks out, their home is destroyed and they have to migrate somewhere else. So us as human beings, we're not exempt from battling the elements. The battle of elements in human beings can be metaphorically described as water, fire, earth, and air. Earth, we battle the elements because we need food. Food is grown from the ground. So we battle the element of earth by needing food that's grown from the ground. We battle the element of water because we need access to clean drinking water. And so we battle the element of drinking water and clean water because we need water to survive. We battle the element of fire, like the heat from the sun, heat exhaustion, or even using fire like a heat source to cook up your food, to make your food. And we battle the element of air by powerful windstorms that may damage our homes or damage our cars, or the bad toxins that are in the air from pollution and chemical radiation that makes the air toxic to breathe. So human beings are not only battling the elements as are the animal kingdom, but human beings are also experiencing hardships mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically, socially, financially. So human beings have to also struggle with consciousness, because you can't escape your own mind. You can't escape your own mind. Your mind is a prison. And you are not only battling the elements, but you're also battling your mind. Control for your mind, control for your thoughts, your reactions to your circumstances, your reaction to your experiences, your reaction to your struggles, your reaction to obstacles, and your reaction to hardships. And so human beings not only have to battle the elements, but they also have to battle consciousness, the consciousness of thought, the power of thought, the power of thinking You know, for example, we battle through pride. Pride is formed in your mind. We battle through physically through attraction. You know, attraction is formed in your mind. If you don't feel beautiful in front of the mirror, you're battling with that with inside your mind. And so we battle attractiveness. We battle pride, which is formed inside of our minds through thinking and thought. We battle um, financial independence. We battle financial independence, where your mind becomes consumed with money, and all you think about is money, and that is from thoughts. That is from your mind. That is from your consciousness. And so, not only are human beings battling the elements as the animal kingdom is, but we're also battling thought. We're also battling consciousness. We're also battling different elements that come from psychological perspectives, like the psychological perspective of what you think of yourself, the psychological perspective of what you think of other people, the psychological perspective of what you think other people are thinking of you. And so we're constantly battling not only the elements but psychological processes as well. And I again ask you the question, how can we learn to accept our circumstances? How can you learn to accept your experiences? How can you learn to accept the things that have happened to you? How can you learn to accept struggle in your life? How can you learn to accept the obstacles in which you're currently facing? How can you learn to accept hardships in your life? Because not every day is good. Animals have a bad day when, say, for example, an elephant is not able to find drinking water, or birds are not able to find food, or squirrels are not able to find nuts because their home may have been destroyed by trees getting cut down, or animals also have to battle humans as well because there's hunters and there's game. So, what if a hunter goes and kills a mama deer? Then that leaves the other deer orphans. And so we are not exempt. We are not exempt from enduring hardships or obstacles as human beings. As human beings, we must find work in order to have food. We must go to work in order to buy things like clothes or a car. And we must teach ourselves knowledge and wisdom so we don't get taken advantage of. Because the animals get taken advantage of. Animals get taken advantage of. There are human beings that take advantage of the elephant's tusks for ivory. There are human beings that take advantage of animals like bears or sheep for the wool that's on these animals, the fur coats that we buy in the store. And so we are not exempt. Animals are taken advantage of. There's squirrels that will hide their food inside of the ground, and then there's other animals that, like a bird, will keep its eyes on that squirrel and see where that squirrel hid their food. And then when the squirrel's gone, the bird will come from the top of the branch and go to the source of food that squirrel hid away. And so animals take advantage of each other too. And so, as human beings, we must learn knowledge and wisdom to not be taken advantage of. And that comes from knowing people, knowing how to talk to people, knowing how to learn different trades and the way things work in order for you to understand how the world works, how the world operates. That's why it's important for human beings to be in a constant flow of knowledge and wisdom. So, how can we learn to accept our circumstances? How can we learn to accept our struggles and obstacles and hardships? Do you let the situation define you? Whatever hardship you're going through, do you let yourself become defined by that hardship. For example, I grew up in a home filled with domestic violence. But am I going to let domestic violence define who I am? And then in turn, instead of becoming a victim of domestic violence, then I become a perpetrator of domestic violence. Right? So do you let the situation define who you are? Because I grew up in a home where my father hit my mother. I also grew up in a home where my mother hit my father. So am I going to let myself be defined by that situation? Am I going to let myself become the perpetrator of a repetitive, cyclical nature of domestic violence? Because more often than not, that's what happens. More often than not, we monkey see, monkey do. We imitate behavior from our parents. We imitate behavior from our parents. And so, are you going to let yourself be defined by your circumstances? Because remember what I told you, there is a historical significance to enduring obstacles. There is a historical significance to enduring struggles. There is a historical significance in many atrocities. There is a historical significance in them. As I had mentioned to you, the African American slaves that were brought from Africa, and they endured many hardships. But did they let themselves be defined by those hardships? Did they let themselves be defined by slavery? Or did they continue to have families? Did they continue to have hope? Did they continue to have faith that one day things will get better? They may not be perfect, but they will get better. What about the Japanese in the American internment camps during World War II? Did the Japanese let themselves be defined by the internment camps, or did they accept their situations even though they complained, even though it wasn't fair? Did they let themselves be defined by the internment camps? No, they continued to go to school. They continued to look out for each other. They continued to grow food and grow crops. They continued to prove to themselves and to the American people that they are worthy to be called Americans. Some Japanese even joined the military. So, did the Japanese during World War II let themselves be defined by the internment camps? No, no, they surely didn't. What about the single mothers and the single fathers? Do they let themselves be defined by their hardships? No, they don't. They continue to be a mother. They continue to be a father, even though they have their own personal needs that are not being met. I'm sure there's many single mothers that just want somebody to be there for them. I'm sure there's many single fathers that want somebody to be there for them, but they continue to be not defined by their singleship, but they continue to look after their children, to look after themselves, even though there aren't some personal needs that are being met. What about an orphan or a foster child? Do they let themselves be defined by their lack of a mother or father in their life? Certainly not. They continue to press forward. They continue to battle on, even though they have been through things that none of us will be able to understand. So, how can we learn to accept our circumstances? Do we let ourselves be defined by our circumstances? Or will you be defined by your outcome to the situation? Isn't that a better way to look at it? Instead of letting yourself be defined by the situation, instead of letting yourself be defined by the experience, for example, I grew up in domestic violence, so that means I'm going to base my entire life off of being in a domestic violent home. No, 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 no. Another example, I was an African American slave and I'm going to base my life on revenge or on retribution. No, 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 no. Or I'm a single father and I'm going to base my life off of the past and how I became a single father. No, 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 no. We must not let ourselves be defined by the situation, but instead we must be defined by our outcome to the situation. Does that make sense? We must let ourselves be defined not by the situation, not by the particular hardship or obstacle, but instead we must let ourselves be defined by the outcome to the situation, the outcome, what you are going to do about the situation. We don't seek revenge. We don't seek to avenge ourselves. No, 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 no. We don't add fire to the fire. No, 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 no. So, do you let the situation define you, or will you be defined by your outcome to the situation? Because from a historical perspective, every single race, every single gender has endured hardships. Women barely got the right to vote during the 1920s. Was it the 1920s? And so, just literally over 100 years ago, women got right to vote in 19 just a little over 100 years ago, women barely got the right to vote. It was in 1919, June 4th, 1919, where women were barely allowed the right to vote. So this country has been in existence since 1776, and that is 247 years. So out of the 247 years that we have been a country, less than half of those years were spent with men only. Men only making the laws, men only running for Congress, men only being allowed to vote. And so, do women let themselves be defined by the time period before 1919? No, no. The battle continues for women's equity, women equality. The battle continues. And so, are we going to let ourselves be defined by the situation, or are we going to let ourselves be defined by the outcome to the situation? Because, as I told you, from a historical perspective, every single race has endured hardship. Every single race has endured hardship, just like the African American slaves in the early 16th and 17th centuries and the 18th centuries. Or what about the Japanese in the American internment camps, or the families with dead relatives that died in the line of duty, or single mothers or single fathers, or divorced men or divorced women, or orphans and foster children, or the different genocides that have happened in the world, such as the one in Rwanda, or in other parts of the world like Haiti. So what are we going to let ourselves be defined by? The situation, or are we going to let ourselves be defined by the outcome to the situation? Because the African American slaves didn't give up hope. The Jews during the Holocaust didn't give up hope. Some of them did. Some of the slaves gave up hope, but not all of them. Not all of them. The Japanese in the American internment camps didn't give up hope. Some of them gave up hope, but not all of them. The families with dead relatives that died in the line of duty, they didn't give up hope. Some of them did, but not all of them. Single mothers don't give up hope. Some of them do, but not all of them. Single fathers don't give up hope. Some of them do, but not all of them. What I'm trying to get you to understand is that every single one of us has to endure hardship. My life isn't perfect, and your life isn't perfect either. Orphans don't give up hope. Foster children don't give up hope. Some of them do, but not all of them. So we must not let ourselves be defined by the situation, but instead let ourselves be defined by our outcomes to the situation. Because whatever situation you're going through, There is hope at the end of the tunnel if you want, if you desire, if you can see, if you can instill faith and courage and resilience, resiliency inside of you. Faith, courage, and resiliency, not pity or loathing or doubt or fear. No, we don't instill in ourselves pity or loathing or doubt or fear because of our situation. If you're whatever you're going through right now, whatever situation or obstacle or struggle or hardship you're enduring, if you want to make it worse, then you have pity. If you want to make your situation worse, then you loathe. You bask in that loathing, or you doubt, or you have fear. No, we must not add fire to the fire. We must have faith and courage and resiliency because every single race, every single gender has been through the absolute worst, and some of them have came out better than they can probably ever imagine. And so, how can we learn to accept our circumstances? What must we do? What must we teach ourselves? What must we be listening to? What must we need to cut out of our lives, like a toxic relationship or a toxic spending habit, or even a toxic habit like a fetish? Are there certain fetishes that you're into that you need to cut out of your life? Are there certain habits that you need to quit in order for you to live a better life, like gambling or pornography or sex addicts or sexual tendencies or alcohol or drugs or smoking or prescription medication? Are there certain habits that you need to cut out of your life in order for you to not have pity? Are there certain things you need to cut out of your life in order for you to not have doubt or fear or to loathe or to complain? How do you instill faith? How do you instill courage? How do you instill resiliency? Because not only are we battling through the elements like fire, earth, water, and air, but we're also battling with consciousness. Your consciousness and the way that you think, your consciousness and the way that you talk to yourself. Not every day is going to be good. I have my bad days too. Not every day is going to be good. But what must you do to become resilient? What must you do to become strong in your faith, strong and courageous? Just like the African American slaves were courageous, just like the Jews during the Holocaust were courageous, just like the Japanese in the internment camps were filled with faith, just like the families with dead relatives that died in the line of duty are filled with resiliency. They lost a mother, they lost a father, they lost a son, they lost a daughter, but still they're resilient and they continue to go on despite the fact of losing somebody very important in their lives. What about single mothers and single fathers? I'm sure there's a lot of single mothers that are just desperately wanting a man in their life because they're lonely. I'm sure there's a lot of single fathers that are desperately wanting a woman in their life because they're desperately lonely, but they still have the resilience to continue to fight and to continue to go on despite their struggles. What about an orphan or a foster child? They don't have a mother or a father. How do you instill resiliency in an orphan or a foster child? Every single one of us has resiliency in us. Every single one of us has courage in us. And every single one of us has faith in us. But do you let yourself be defined by the situation, or do you be defined by your outcome to the situation? Because if you let yourself be defined by the situation, then the faith and the courage and the resilience, it ceases to exist. and instead is filled with pity and loathing and doubt and fear. But when you are defined by your outcome to the situation, your perspective of the situation is different because you're focused on the outcome, you're focused on the goal that you're trying to achieve. You're not focused on the situation because every one of us has gone through something bad in our lives. And so instead of focusing on that negative event, we're focused on our outcome to the event, getting better, healing, taking time to learn and to grow and to understand how we let this happen. Why did this happen? What did I learn from this situation? What can I gain from this situation? How can I walk out of this situation better than the situation itself? How can I learn to be a better human being from this situation? How can I learn to be a better mother from this situation? How can I learn to be a better father from this situation? How can I learn to be a better person, a better human being from this situation? Every one of us has struggles. Every one of us has obstacles, and everyone endures hardships. Not a single person is exempt from this. So, how can we learn to accept our circumstances? What must you learn to accept your circumstances? What must you learn? What must you overcome? What must you adapt to? What must you cut out of your life? What must you what habits need to go? Right? Because don't they say old habits die hard? So what habits do you need to cut out of your life? And so I'll leave you with this because only you can define your outcome in life. Only you hold the power to control your life. So, how can we learn to accept our circumstances? Do you let the situation define you, or will you be defined by your outcome to the situation? As for me, I will choose the second. I will let myself be defined by the outcome to the situation, not letting myself be defined to the situation. Till next time.